Now that I have cleaned out the firebox down into the ash container, and I have scraped all the ash from around the oven, I need to scrape all that ash out from underneath the oven. I like to be really thorough about that before I start on the chimney so that I am not warring with, lots of heavy, just regular ash and creosote. Creosote is mainly in the chimney. So we used to get up on the roof to clean the chimney, and it was very dangerous because we get a lot of ice and really extreme temperatures here, and when it would ice over you, the chance of sliding off were very high. So we would put it off, and then we'd start to have back puffing, and then we'd start to have chimney fires. Last winter I found this tool that is meant for cleaning out the dryer hose, the exhaust hose on your dryer, but it also cleans out chimneys. The larger head is for chimneys, the smaller head is for your dryer. And because the rods are flexible, it can get around a right angle as long as the drill is turning it. It gets around any angle, and it's super easy. You just have to always remember that when it's in the chimney, you only ever turn it in a clockwise fashion. If you turn it in a counterclockwise fashion, you will undo the rods while they're still in the chimney, and then you'll have to take your chimney apart. So I'm very careful about that. I always check and double check that that's what I'm doing, is always going in a clockwise fashion. And then when you use this tool, you have to make sure that you're bringing the ash back down. You don't want to just loosen the creosote and the ash up in the chimney. You want to pull it down by going back and forth to let it fall down into the base of the chimney where you can clean it out. Otherwise, if it builds up in a spot because you didn't get it to come back down the chimney, it will create a fire bomb. You'll have a chimney fire. And it's just practice. It's not scary. It's just, something that you learn over the course of years, and we've been using this stove for 8 years now. So we have learned the tricks of the trade, and I'm trying to share those with you because it makes a difference in how safe your tool is. If it's easy to take care of, if it's easy to maintain, you'll maintain it, and then it's a safer tool. You'll see that the ash that I'm pulling out now is black, which is because it's creosote from the chimney. There's not very much of it. There's very little of it, but it's good to clean it out regularly. Like I said, at most we go 6 weeks. The reason for this is that we use softwood. A lot of what we burn is pine because that's what grows in our area, and it builds up a lot of ash, and it builds up a little bit of creosote if you don't clean it. And so whenever we see that things are getting a little bit too built up, we cool the stove down. You can see I did it on a very bright day. If you try to clean your stove on a really cold day, you'll be sorry because your house will be cold. So on a really nice warm day, when it's like in the 30s outside instead of colder, this is what I do, is I do a really good thorough clean on the stove because it builds up. Just like your conventional stove builds up grease and grime and things from cooking, the wood burning stove does the same, but on a much larger scale, because you can't clean the stove until it cools down. If it's hot enough to heat your whole home, it's hot enough to burn you. If you put a wet washcloth on a hot stove like this, it will steam your hand. And it's nice to kind of see her shiny and sparkly again, because she gets a lot of use from us. Rather than using anything harsh or acidic on the stove, you want to stay away from those because they'll eat the metal over time if something acidic is left on the stove. So I use elbow grease and a bread scraper for when you're making your bread dough and you use it to scrape it off the counter when you're kneading it. That is the tool that I use, and a little toothbrush and some paper towels, and you just get in there and you scrub. And I like to use it as a full morning. I'll have lunch making on the electric stove while I'm fixing up the wood stove. So I've got lunch in the oven on the other side, and I will just maybe turn on an audiobook and listen to it while I'm thoroughly cleaning this stove, and it's really pleasant. When the stove gets heated back up again, when I turn it back on, any moisture that is in the stove will be evaporated. And so if at the end of your year of using your stove, so maybe for us that would be in May, we stop using the stove in May, At that point, I would wash it one last time, and then I would fire it back up again really good and hot to burn off any water that was on the stove from when I cleaned it. That's really important. Any water left on the stove will rust it. If you heat it back up again, it will evaporate that water, which is what you want to have happen. I don't just pour water on the stove. I put a little dot of water on the stove so that I can control where the water goes, so it's not going down inside the stove. That's not good for it. And anyway, you can see it's a pretty pleasant experience. I enjoy it, but in the interim, in between cleanings, it does look like a tool that gets a lot of use. It is hard to keep it spit, spot, and perfect without melting tools onto it, so this is how we do it. And it is an Elmira stove, and it does have propane attachments on the side that let you cook with propane if you ever had a power down situation in the summer.